like to announce that the meeting is being recorded, so that anybody that does not agree to have the meeting recorded, you will have to leave the meeting. Otherwise, we'll mean that you have consented to the recording of the meeting. I would like to start with a mea culpa, if I can, regarding Senator Rothman and our failure to make sure that everybody was properly notified of a couple of prior meetings. He was the last person to be appointed to the board by the Republican caucus of the Senate, and somehow it was dropped through the cracks, and he did not receive the notification of the March 30th meeting, and very much was apologetic that he was not on. We are really sorry it happened. Hopefully we have brought you up to speed with everything that we accomplished then. The one vote that we did have was to affirm the motion that was passed at a prior special meeting, which was to waive the requirements for the political subdivisions to file this year's report. We've had an extensive discussion of it, but he does want to know that he would have voted no on that motion. And if he wants to make an explanation of why, he can, but I do want it that he would have voted no if he had received the proper notification. So I apologize that it will not happen again.
No problem.
With that, I would like to, as I said, call the meeting to order. This is the public meeting. It is for the purposes of discussing business of the trust. The public has been invited to attend. We will take any formal actions according to the vote, and although the public can attend, they will not be invited to make any comments, but we welcome your participation, and we're anxious for you to hear everything that we're going to be considering during this meeting. With that, I'd like to have an approval of the minutes of the meeting of January the 20. Help me with the agenda here a minute, Heather.
Sure. Let's see, January 23rd.
January 26th meeting, the March 1st, 2023 meeting, which was a special meeting, and the March 30th, 2023 public meeting. I would like to start off by saying that I have a motion to correct the minutes that were circulated before this meeting. Item 6 under my report talked about developing an allocation formula, and in fact, the allocation formula was set previously, and it should have read that we allocated monies to counties, 70% for the counties, 15% to litigating subdivisions, and municipalities, 15% to the state of Pennsylvania in accordance with the Commonwealth Court order. So with that correction, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 26th, March 1st, and March 30th meetings? Any discussion?
Second.
And I'm assuming that was moved with the amendment that I just made. With that, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, Heather, could you formally call roll so we are sure that we have a quorum for the of the trustees?
Will do. Roll call for the Pennsylvania Opioid Misuse and Addiction Abatement Trust. Chairman Van Kirk.
Here.
Shay Madden.
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Boozle.
Here.
Aaron Dalton.
Here.
Secretary Davis Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Jean D. Giralmo.
Here.
Almo. My apologies.
That's okay.
Representative Jim Gregory.
Here.
Steve Jasper.
Here.
Commissioner Postal.
Here.
Senator Greg Rothman.
Here.
Senator Tartaglione, I believe she has someone attending on her behalf.
Yes, I would like to say that because of a death in her family, she was unable to attend and obviously is excused for those reasons.
Very good. Dr. Jean Wright. Okay. I believe we have a quorum.
And we do have a quorum. With that, I would like to provide a short update on what we refer to as the Wave 2 settlements with our Teva, Allergen, and 3 pharmaceutical companies, Walgreens, Walmart, and CVS. Unfortunately, we were not able to achieve 100% participation, and therefore the monies will not be as much as what we had talked about in previous meetings. If everybody had participated and we would have had 100% participation, the Commonwealth would have received a total from all 5 settlements of $773,387,000. Because of the fact that we did have counties that did not participate, we will only be receiving $567,314,847, which means that there's a shortfall of $206 million from what had previously been reported. That does not mean that we will not continue to work to have those other counties participate, other county participate, but to the extent that they haven't, there will be a hit at the counties that will not receive anything as a result of not participating. Amounts to about an $80 million hit for them, so that the total hit to the remaining participating subdivisions is approximately $125 million. Like I said, we still hope to get everyone. We had otherwise great participation. If you take it by number of counties that we were trying to get involved and litigating subdivisions in the Teva settlement, we received 99% participation of those that we were trying to get involved. Allergen was 99%, Walgreens was 97.8%, CVS was 97.8%, and Walmart was 99%. So very, very high participation rate. We thank everybody who saw their way clear to reaching settlement, avoid costly litigation, and to bring the maximum amount of money into the Commonwealth. I will say that to the extent that there were holdouts and no non-participation, it was not for all of the settlements. The primary group that are primary companies that did not achieve that took the hit were CVS and Walgreens, where certain counties just felt as if they could not participate in those settlements. So with that, I'd like to move on to what is the most important part of this agenda, and that is a presentation on which we will have a vote by Penn State, Pitt, and Temple. We did circulate to the trustees beforehand in the trustee packet the full proposal as set forth by Penn State, Pitt, and Temple. As you know, an important part of the trust, now that we have been set up, now that we have brought money in, now that we have paid out more than $130 million to the various counties, to the state, to the participating subdivisions. The next thing to do is to set up a process by which we can monitor and make sure that the monies are being spent on those things that were authorized by Exhibit E to the settlement agreement. Exhibit E to the settlement agreement are those things that the defendants demanded that we, the state, spend the money on in order to continue to receive the settlement funds. Pursuant to the Commonwealth Court order, it is the responsibility of the trust to implement the requirements to get the proper reporting in, have the counties and the municipalities report on what they spent the money on, and for us to make the determination as to whether it was spent on the things that were authorized by the settlement agreement. We have decided to take it a little bit further, and a lot of it at the request of the counties and the subdivisions. It's one thing to spend the money on things that were authorized by the settlement agreement. Very important to make sure that we do that. But equally as important is to make sure that the money is being spent effectively. We are sure we will find that there are things that were authorized by the settlement agreement that people can and will be able to spend money on. But there may be other things that are far more effective and that certain counties have developed and can show that it is very effective for them. Not that one size fits all. One of the reasons we turned this over to the counties was we knew that at the local level is where the decision should be made. But there's no reason that a Bucks County shouldn't be able to look at it and say, hey, we did this year, but hey, look at what the effects and all of the advantages were that Butler County, Erie County derived from the way they spent the money. So we intend to develop information so that counties in future years can look at the way monies were spent, what were the most effective use of money, and make the determination as to whether they want to spend the money for those purposes. So with that, we do have a proposal from Penn State in conjunction with Pitt and Temple, and I would ask Dennis Scanlon and Glenn for you to make a presentation as to what you would propose to do.
Thanks, Tom. So this is Ben Stanley from Penn State University, and happy to be here on behalf of our collaboration of faculty and research staff at our 3 state-related research institutions at Penn State, Pitt, and Temple. And really good to continue this journey. Just by way of background, a number of us at Penn State have been involved with the Commonwealth for a number of years. The earliest work really focusing on economic and health impacts of the opioid epidemic and trying to estimate that in conjunction with 46 state attorney generals across the country, but certainly working here in Pennsylvania as well to understand the impact in areas such as criminal justice, Medicaid, child welfare, the economy writ large, and social services. And I think hopefully that work, much of which was published, was helpful in achieving the proposed settlement. After that proposed settlement, obviously we helped produce work in conjunction with many of the counties and municipalities to get to the terms of the settlement, really thinking about the allocation, and that's the formula, by which the trust is and will be distributing the funds. And as you mentioned, Tom, I think now to help the trust with its fiduciary responsibility for understanding how the funds are being spent and used pursuant to Schedule or Exhibit E, which are the required opioid abatement uses. But importantly, understanding, because there's a lot of latitude and freedom there within Schedule E, is to think about the impact, both the evidence base for the use of the funds, but ultimately tying those uses to trends in key population public health outcomes, many of which are the same that were used to establish the conditions of the settlement to begin with. So happy to sort of continue or propose to continue that work. We've envisioned our work to be collaborative in serving the needs of the trust and its fiduciary responsibility to work with the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, CCAP, and its administrative role, and also with its relationships with the counties and then other entities as well, such as PACTA. Specifically, the type of work that we would provide will be to help to execute, to both design and to think about, but also to execute the approach to transparency around the uses of funds and the specific type of use, as well as the public health outcomes. Most notably in the form of a website. And so for anybody that's been tracking this, there's been a lot written about, a lot of discussion around the variation across states, across the country in terms of information available. I think right now the Pennsylvania website is one that needs to be developed, perhaps has a little bit less than other states across the country, but I think not necessarily a bad thing, because I think thoughtfulness and planning is really important, but lots of choices that can be made. I think thinking about the constituents that might find information, anything from the citizens of the Commonwealth to other stakeholders such as counties and municipalities, to state government legislators, departments, regulators, media, and so forth and so on. And so really hoping to plan what type of information should be there, not only to be transparent, but also to give these stakeholders a sense of what's happening with these dollars and ultimately it is moving the needle from a public and population health perspective. So we've been tracking and monitoring what's been going on across the country and are prepared to provide consultation and resources. But beyond that, as you mentioned, developing a data collection tool on a periodic basis that the trust will require so that we understand how the funds are being used and how they fit the purposes of the settlement in Schedule E. We would develop a user-friendly web-based version, which I like to sort of link this to the idea of dollars in, dollars out, right? So the amounts received, which will occur over an 18-year period in different increments, to how those are being allocated and for what purpose, when those dollars are actually expended, because we certainly know that plans materialize sometimes in RFPs, sometimes in contracts that have payments that go out at various points in time, some of which are tied to achieving metrics. So we would track all that, and ultimately, in addition to that, we would take that information and we would track more detailed information around the program and around the interventions through publicly available sources such as contracts, such as programmatic details and so forth. Bring that information back to the trust for its responsibilities, but then also again help to analyze that information and put it out on the website again in conjunction with CCAP and with the trust overall plan. Included in that would be not only the design of the data collection, but the security of the data transfer and storage, assistance with reporting as needed, and then, as I mentioned, obtaining that additional robust data that our goal would be to minimize the burden on reporting entities, the counties, and municipalities, but to leverage the ability to go track down again some more of that detail in ways that would not require burden on those entities. From an analytic perspective, and anyone who's looked at some of the other states' websites that are available, there are a variety of metrics that we will track, some of which we helped to look at as we were doing this background work prior, whether it's overdose measures, whether it's emergency department visits, naloxone administration, or criminal justice involvement, or any of a number of other different measures to maintain the trend historically, but also look at how that trend hopefully will be impacted to the positive in terms of population and public health as a result of the interventions, and really trying to link the activities back to the ultimate impact on population health. And then finally, to really what we'll call develop a learning community. We discuss this in conjunction with CCAP, but to share best practices, to weigh in on evidence base for which our training research universities are very much involved in this space to provide assistance to the municipalities as they think about how to spend these funds and to serve that purpose. I guess I should say in closing here that at the University of Pittsburgh, we'd be working with HIT Peru, their programming and program evaluation research unit by Dr. Jim Pringle, and Temple, their Center for I'm sure the name right, I always confuse this, for public health and legal research. So it'd be a partnership of our three institutions.
Thank you, guys. Len, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, that's fantastic. Thanks.
I would say one thing that got us to where we are here, we've always known that we were going to have these, the counties were going to have the reporting requirements. We want to be as, we don't want to impose a ton of bureaucracy and administrative burden on the counties. We really want as much of the money to be spent as possible on opioid abatement. So for that reason, we do want to keep streamlined but yet give us all the information we can have to make the decisions as to whether the money is being spent properly. We had a history of dealing with Penn State. They were very instrumental in helping us put together before the creation of the trust, as we were working through the mediation process and developing the allocation formula for how the money should be distributed. Penn State played a leading role in developing those metrics. In doing so, they worked with other states. They were involved with how other states were doing things, and were very struck by the collaborative way that they were able to obtain information from their colleagues across the country, so that we didn't have to reinvent the wheel, but rather could use try to develop what best practices were. One of the reasons that we were interested in Penn State was because of that background. When they did come and say that they did believe they had the capability to do it, we felt that we should see exactly what they had in mind, requested a proposal, and tried to gear the cost to what we thought was appropriate for the work that was being done. We were quite comfortable with the expertise of Penn State, and for that reason, did not put this out for competitive bid, because there was no sense trying to get other people up to speed with where Penn State already was in the process, and having worked with many of us already. What we did do was to ask Penn State to also involve the other state-related research institutions, so that we could have representation from Pitt and Temple, and they were very responsive in making that proposal to be inclusive of the other state-related universities. And I think that we have had a working consortium that that can be very useful, develop the information that we need, and go further and develop the information that the counties can draw upon in the future to see what does work and what doesn't work. So we had an extensive presentation regarding research they had done into what other states are doing at the informational meeting preceding this, and I believe are confident that that they have continued with being collaborative with other states and the way other states are spending the money. So with that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions any of the trustees would like to have on the proposal that was included in the packet. From a cost standpoint, I will say that it does not include any administrative expenses. We intend to use their master contract that they already have with the Commonwealth, so that the cost will not have to be allocated. And the proposal is effectively for the combination of Pitt, Temple, and Penn State to be a total of $180,000 a year over a 3-year period. It will be $540,000. It would be a 3-year contract and subject to renewal after that. So with that, if I could have a motion that we approve that contract on those basic terms, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that motion.
Is there a second?
I can second Kevin Boozle if you'd like.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, discussion on the motion.
I don't have,
If I may,
I don't have a question.
go ahead.
Comment if I can, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
I was able to ask some questions during our informational meeting, and I was very pleased with the responses. I just had a comment, if I may. So many of us have lost people in our lives, some on this call, many on this call, I'm sure, myself included. But I just had to request, as you go through data collection, which sounds so, you know, it's black and white, that you keep in mind that because you are from Penn State, and I just feel moved to say this, that for my constituent back home, the Sinisi family, having lost their son Sean to an opioid overdose, and also having been a victim of the Jerry Sandusky abuses, that please keep them in your minds as you go through this important work, to know that it isn't just about the data, it's about the losses and the devastation and the things that we are trying to address here. I ask that, and I know you will, and I'm grateful for the time to say that to you. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jim, thank you. That's a very, very important point. That is, I think, something that we are all about, and something we all want to keep in mind going forward is that this is something we're trying to overcome, something that so many have suffered from so much. Thank you very much for making that comment. Other comments or questions?
Yeah, hi, this is Erin from Allegheny County. So I think the data collection and transparency parts of the proposal make good sense. I certainly want to make sure that the data is available. In terms of like the pieces of this work that are related to evaluation and whether the money is being spent like quote unquote properly. I mean, outside of the Exhibit E and the requirements for being spent, that's one piece, and that's sort of easily checked off on whether the money is being spent appropriately. To really think about actual public health impact, I think you're talking about a much, much bigger effort than what is supported here. And so I just wonder, like, whether what is actually feasible given the amount of funding, and also acknowledge there is a whole scientific literature on this that counties can avail themselves of when thinking about how to use these funds. And so, and additionally, these funds are not the only funds being spent on this epidemic in counties, of course. And so I just wonder about those other pieces. It seems not well funded enough to have an actual impact on the knowledge base. And so if folks have a response to that, I'd be interested.
Yeah, Karen, I think that's a good question. Of course, as researchers who do a lot of the work, per your point, many of our studies do require more time and dollars, but we were sensitive to the fundamental needs of the trust in terms of transparency and accountability, fiduciary responsibility. But we do believe, per your point, that this work will allow our free research universities and potentially others to leverage that for other substantive funding that could be used for the reasons that you mentioned. So for example, we've had conversations with certain philanthropic foundations that fund research, divisions of the National Institute of Health, whether it's the NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health, or SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Association. And we do think that there's research funding available for projects. And actually, in some of those cases, just to give an example, during the prior session, we had a conversation around evidence base and cultural competency, for example. There may be a program that's deemed evidence based, but when you dig right into it from a research perspective, it may have been studied in one context. It may not exactly fit a rural community. It may not fit a community that is diverse on different dimensions in the Commonwealth. And so in our experience, there are opportunities to take something and maybe do a little bit more study on it while it's implemented, and also to leverage that for purposes of finding one of those other entities that might be willing to fund it. So in our vision, this partnership hopefully can take this and this effort and serve the purposes of the trust, but maybe leverage that to not only assist counties and potentially obtain additional funds, some of which for program implementation, but some to do some of that more basic research for your point. So maybe the way I respond to that.
Does that answer your question, Aaron?
I think so. I mean, right, the data collection side, that stuff has to be done. So that part makes sense to me.
Yeah, well, I think the data collection does have to be done, most definitely, but it really is the analysis of that data and what can be useful and what has been effective, where I think Penn State can add the greatest expertise, and that is covered in the scope of work in the proposal. And was something that we were very cognizant of. I sense that part of your question was with everything that we really need and can do in that area. Will they be able to do it, given the fact that we are giving them not an insignificant amount of money, but still a limited amount of money? And I think the answer to that really was, we do hope that they are going to be able to get Penn State and Temple working together. We'll be able to leverage the data they are collecting with us to also be able to participate in other ventures with other consortiums and really help to get to more evidence-based solutions to help us overcome this epidemic, and that they will be able to leverage the contract that they have with us to be able to get those research dollars to enable them to have the funds to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, and obviously counties can pursue their own research partnerships. I mean, we're not talking about individual data being collected here, right? This is just data about the interventions.
Correct.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's just, I don't know how that will add to the knowledge base, but hopefully it does.
Other questions?
Quick comment.
This is Kevin.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to be clear, because it kind of struck a chord when she said about other counties can do their research. And I think that we assumed that this was the amount of research required for this project with the opioid settlement dollars. That it is very limited in the funds that are going to research. So how will that be handled? And this is more of a question than a statement. How will that be handled moving forward if somebody has a project that they want to pursue additional research on? We talked about them tying it in with Penn State and how do we get there, but I guess that's the piece I'm missing, and I want to be very clear on the record of how they, if it is possible, how do they make that happen?
And my answer to that is it will be a conjunction if individual counties see research opportunities or additional research they would like to have. We want to make the resources available through this contract that we'll be entering into with Penn State to see whether or not Penn State is able to undertake that, provided under what I will refer to as this master contract in conjunction with the County Commissioners Association, and also work with the with DDAP and Secretary Davis Jones, who of course is a trustee, but also the state is not removing themselves from responsibility for helping with what research efforts might be undertaken and how they can assist the counties. There's a lot of other sources of dollars other than just the opioid funds that come in to try to fight this problem. There are federal funds, there is state funds that are available, and we anticipate that Penn State and the County Commissioners Association will work in conjunction with all of that in order to be able to provide the individual counties with the research that they might need. So in direct answer to your question, I would expect that the counties would desire further research, would first turn to Penn State and ask them if that is part of the work that they can do, and will provide the information to them before they would expend additional funds.
Thank you. That was the clarity I was looking for. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Other questions? Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Aaron said, I can guarantee you that Exhibit E is going to be respected. But as a county commissioner, I need this information. I need more information to know that we're using our funds effectively. And we should be trying to put ourselves out of business. But we know that's not going to be that easy. From a county perspective, commissioner perspective, when our budget deliberations occur, I need to know that we are using funds that are actually going to make a difference, and not just a check mark that, well, is consistent with Exhibit E, because we all know that it's very broad. So thank you, my comment.
I would say, as you look at the scope of work, one of the provisions under scope of work is that they will assist CCAP and also the other organizations with the various questions that might arise with the settlement funding being distributed at the local levels. There'll be a variation in decisions regarding how to best spend funds to have maximum population health impact. It is likely that many counties and municipalities will need technical support and assistance when making decisions about fund use. And it would be what part of what they propose is that they will work and advise and work with the counties and municipalities that may need to develop plans for studying the effectiveness so that they can demonstrate accountability to the associates and to the constituents and local shareholders. So part of what their proposal really is to provide this kind of technical.
Okay, so that is helpful. Just to clarify the commissioner's point, I totally understand, Commissioner, and appreciate that you would want to know and have the best information possible to make sure that the money is having impact. It sounds like, though, what we're expecting here, just to make sure it's clear, is technical assistance to work with counties if they are seeking plans to evaluate, right? Is that a more clear? Because I don't think there's simply not the data that's suggested to be collected here will not be able to make a determination of best impact at a county level or a population level.
Yeah, I would jump in here and say, I think, Aaron, my sense is you're asking a very technical research question, and I think it's a good one in the sense of establishing causality between sort of implementation of something specific and an effect. You know, there's a lot that goes into being able to do that, and it does become challenging, you know, when you associations and you know, sort of inferences that are sort of a little bit less definitive are possible. But I would also say, in our experience, these types of things can lead to some interesting opportunities to work collaboratively to design something. You know, when there's interest that is going to get a stronger answer, if you will. And I think we are open to those possibilities. I think that, again, as I mentioned previously, I think there's opportunities to secure additional resources, both potentially for a county to put into place a program, but also to study it in a little bit more depth. And I think that's where we can leverage things. But the last thing I would say is, and I probably don't need to say this to a bunch of people in counties that routinely spend money on this or programs, but we are, you know, our work is not a substitute for good contracts with, you know, deliverables with data that comes, right? I mean, that's all what you do when you spend money anyhow. And while that might not be research, you know, that's accountability for the dollars spent. And so we can comment on evidence base if something's been studied, you know, sort of the impact on a population in a quantitative and qualitative sense, but obviously you'll want to hold those who you're giving money to accountable for delivering as well.
Any other questions or comments on the proposal? Hearing none, we're very anxious to get going with this. Counties have been asking when they are going to have to report, what they're going to have to report. We owe them answers to it, and this is the first step in doing that. Penn State is prepared to work with CCAP and start immediately to start answering those questions. One other aspect of this that we did discuss in the prior meeting that would be of interest, I hope, to the public, and that is there will be a lot of information collected on how was the money spent over and above how effective those programs are, but just how was the money spent. We do intend that that will be part of the trust website as the information is collected. It will be posted and available to the public so that they will know how the individual counties spent the money. To the extent that there's an analysis of programs that work best, that will also be posted so that everybody can know exactly what the results of the Penn State work is. So if there's no other questions, I would like to move that we approve the monitoring and reporting proposal that was presented by Penn State and appeared in your package. If I could have a motion to that effect.
You may have, I think you have a motion.
You do.
Have a motion, second,
Have a second.
second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? I would say for the purpose of the public, with the approval of this, it will be $180,000 a year administrative expense when coupled with the approximate $120,000 a year to CCAP for the other administrative expenses that they're incurring by way of helping to distribute the money to provide the website support, all of the administrative support. That will bring us up to $300,000, not an insignificant amount of money, but when you consider that we had the authority to spend up to 1% of the monies that come into the state for administrative expenses, and the fact that we have received and distributed $130 million, that means that we are spending less than 0.25% of 1% in order to conduct the administrative work that is required of the trust. There will be some additional dollars on the attorney's proposal that I'm going to present a little bit later in this meeting, but I think that we are staying well within the boundaries, and we are following through with our objective and our goal, and indeed our duty to make sure that we're not creating a bureaucracy. Rather, we're trying to get every available cent that we can into the treatment of this and try to overcome this opioid epidemic. So I do want to assure you we're very conscious of the money that's being spent. With that, I'd like to move on to, there's an agenda item that talks about the trust approval of recommendations by the subcommittee. We in fact already approved that the subcommittee that worked on this, which consists of Shay Madden, myself, Secretary Davis Jones, and Commissioner Boozle. We have fielded questions that have come up on the website. We proposed answers to those. We have gone over those answers. As a trust, we are willing to say those are the answers. We think the subcommittee is going to stay in place to field any questions that get posed on the website, and we will consider those proposed answers, and with the approval of the entire trust, we will then post those on the website. We will be proposed, and next week we will post answers to the 8 or 9 questions that have already been raised, and that will be available for public consumption. I've already discussed the posting of the governmental entities opioid spending. The final bit of business that is on the agenda is to discuss the retention of a law firm. It's obvious that there are going to be various legal questions that come up on this, although I've heard the references that Exhibit E is clear. I'm not sure that in everybody's mind it is. There are a lot of questions as to whether or not something falls within Exhibit E. A lot of it relates to law enforcement, etc., which is going to necessitate legal interpretation of exactly what was intended and are we making the correct decision. I will also say that we've already had several inquiries under the Right to Know Act, and the response to those is going to require legal input as far as what, not that we're required to make, but are we adequately protecting the rights of the people that we are contracting with, to the extent that the right to know request might deal with requests for proposals that we might have received. And we don't feel comfortable, although the County Commissioners Association has a law firm of their own that they do retain to provide legal services, because some of the rulings might be whether or not an individual county, which is a member of the County Commissioners Association, is within their legal rights to spend the money as they are. We don't think it's appropriate to have the CCAP's legal counsel ruling on that, it puts them in a tremendous conflict position. So rather, we think the trust ought to have its own law firm. We do have a proposal that I asked them to present from Buchanan, Ingersoll and Rooney, which is a Pennsylvania law firm, numerous offices throughout the country, but sizable locations in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Harrisburg, so that they have a lot of familiarity with the state and representation throughout the state. They also have extensive experience in front of Commonwealth Court, which, to the extent that representation is going to be required there on interpretations of the trust order, on additional modifications to the trust order that may be requested by the trust or by individual counties or litigating entities, all of which may arise, and it is necessary for us to have a law firm to help us address those questions. By way of full disclaimer, I was a 42-year member of Buchanan Ingersoll. I started with them in 1971. I was a former managing partner and chief operating officer of Buchanan. I have not been with them since 2012 when I left to join Highmark as legal counsel, but I did retain them and many other firms for legal work thereafter. But I do not have any financial interest in the firm, nor is my pension or anything else dependent upon anything to be received from Buchanan. So I have no financial interest in this. What I do want is to retain counsel that I am very comfortable with, and I know are very, very confident to provide the legal advice that we need. Was able to negotiate with Buchanan. Once again, did not put this out for multiple proposals. I did have discussions with other firms that weren't particularly interested, because I did ask that they make a substantial discount in their fees, recognizing the public service nature of this work, and they Buchanan has agreed to discount their fees by 35% in order to have this representation. I know from my dealings with them as general counsel at Highmark that their bills are fair. They do not load up on the bills, and I do know that they possess the necessary have the necessary legal abilities to help us move forward. So I would appreciate, and I'm going to abstain obviously from this vote, but I would appreciate a motion to adopt the proposal from Buchanan that was set forth in the material submitted to you before this meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I will say that our acceptance of this, we are going to have to ask both the Attorney General and the Commonwealth for certain conflict waivers. They do not want their representation of the trust to preclude them. They do have an active Commonwealth court litigation or practice, and they don't want it to preclude them from perhaps representing other clients in front of the Commonwealth Court that may have been brought by the Insurance Commission or other governmental agencies. I can tell you that that is a standard waiver that people ask for when entering into contracts with governmental entities. So, having had the motion, a second, and hearing no discussion.
Tom, can I ask just one quick question?
Yes,
This is Erin, I'm sorry. Who's the contract with directly? Like is it the Attorney General's office and the and Buchanan Ingersoll, or that goes for all the contracts? Actually, I was unclear on that point.
No, it is with the trust itself.
The trust itself.
It is within the trust itself, and it's to answer trust questions. It's not to provide some of the issues that they may have to advise on. In fact, maybe if any differences arise between us and the Attorney General's office, which is why the contract.
I see. and forgive me, I'm sure I should know this, but the trust itself in terms as an entity is what? Like what are we? Whereas like what are we?
Perspective, like a 501c3.
It is not a 501c3, it is a trust created by the Commonwealth Court order in order to administer the proceeds from the opioid settlements. But it is a public entity.
Okay, all right.
And the trustees, all of whom, as you all
Sure.
well know, serve without compensation, still have the fiduciary duties for the, to fulfill the purposes of the trust, all of which are set forth in the code.
Got it. Thank you. It would, an early question for the legal entity for me would be just, given our status as a public entity, what rules apply to us in terms of various, procurement and other approaches, other stand like right to know, procurement, those sorts of standards.
That is one of the reasons we want to bring them on board, and it will be one of the first questions we ask.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for reinforcing that. Okay, can we please have a vote on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? And could you
Aye.
note that I am abstaining, although I do not have a vote unless there's a tie in any event, so but I am abstaining regardless. Okay, anything else to come before the meeting? I did point out, and I would like the public to know, the next meeting is scheduled for September 7th, 2023. This schedule was developed at the beginning of the year. We really didn't know exactly when there were going to be various due dates, but given the work that Penn State is now going to be doing, the development of the questions that are going to be going out, the kind of analysis that we want, I do believe we'll need to call a special meeting sometime over the summer. I'll try to poll and get as convenient a time as possible. I certainly know that with vacation schedules and everything, it may be difficult, but given the fact that we're doing this by Zoom, I'll try to find a time where it is kind of equal inconvenience to everybody, okay? With that, could I have a motion that the meeting be adjourned? So moved.
Thank you.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you. Yeah.